The Porsche 911 is 50 years old this year, and during that time it's been re-engineered by Porsche just 6 times, making 7 different generations in all. A few weeks back, on a rather cold but not in the least bit miserable day at Silverstone, AutoCar gathered an example of each to help celebrate this amazing car's 50th anniversary.
So this is it. This is where it all started with the Porsche 911. This car is from 1966. It's the actual car that was road tested by Motor Magazine in 1966. AutoCar and Motor used to be one and the same thing. And it is a massive privilege that its owner, Rob Russell, has brought it along for this event, this celebration of the 911's 50th anniversary, and for some incredible reason has allowed me to have a go at it. Fire him up. Dogleg gearbox, so down and away to get first. Yeah, I think that's in. 2 litre flat 6 with 130 horsepower, but this car weighs 900 kilograms. So even though it's only got as much power as a 205 GTI, it's still genuinely fast. And in 1966, I can't imagine what this would have felt like. Oh man, I love this car. It feels so small and compact. The steering is delicious. Absolutely rippling, bursting with feel. Lovely throttle response as well. Even though it's a horrible cold day and it's on carbs, you still get this little whap of response whenever you go anywhere near the throttle. No power steering, no power brakes, no electronic assistance for anything at all. Just pure engineering, unfettered engineering. Its owner very pessimistically suggests that this car is worth about £150,000. I think he might be in for a shock. I think he should be insuring it for a bit more than that. I think it might be worth nearer 200,000. You know what? It doesn't feel old-fashioned to me. It feels bloody lovely. Wow, I feel really lucky and really privileged to have been allowed anywhere near this thing. It's just a delight. I think it's time to try a slightly younger 911 just to see what the differences are. You jump forwards 30 years to the 993, which came out in 1993, and yet, okay, the engine is hugely more refined and hugely quieter than the original 1966 car, but the fundamentals of the cabin architecture and the driving position, even where the steering wheel is just almost identical to the original car. It's amazing. This just feels like a more grown-up, slightly more modern version of the original car, but actually still very much like the original car. It's incredible. But of course there were all sorts of areas in which the 993 was a huge improvement, not just over the original classic or the G series, but over the 964 that it replaced as well. Having said that, it was still an air-cooled engine. It was the last of the air-cooled flat 6 engines that Porsche used, because the one after this, the 996, became auto-cooled, and all the 911 fans got slightly upset about that. And that's because all of a sudden the 911 lost its mojo slightly when it moved on from the 993 and became the 996. And that's why I think, personally, my absolute favourite 911 is this one, the 993, because it's got all that lovely old school feel and sound and response from the original, but it's also mixed with a fair old slice of modern refinement as well. Sounds pretty good too. Still sounds pretty good. Oh, I just forget. You forget. I have forgotten how lovely the 993 actually was. This was the moment that Porsche really hit the sweet spot. I really think it was with the 911. And so to the latest car, the 991. Instantly it feels bigger, wider, much more comfortable, much quieter, but I kind of think it feels a bit too big, especially straight after the Classic and after the 993. The 993 feels titchy next to a 991, and I'm not entirely sure that all the 991's extra space and bulk is welcome, really. I mean, you can't get any more people in the back seats of this car than you can in a 993, and yet it feels not twice the size, but just like a completely different class of car. Having said that, it is a very nice thing just to knock about in the 991. It's much more luxurious than even the 997 that came before it. This one has the PDK gearbox, which some people don't like. I happen to think it's pretty fantastic. It's also, without question, seriously rapid, this car. I mean, okay, a 993 feels pretty chirpy on the move, but it is nowhere beside this. And this is just a cooking Carrera. Doesn't sound too bad either. Listen to this. I guess in the end, that the 991, like all the other 911s that we've been lucky enough to have a go at today, it just has its own individual personality, and it's a personality that fits the time right now. You know, the Classic in 1966 was an absolute spaceship, and it felt like no other car ever before it. And then the G-Series that replaced it, and then the 964 that replaced that, and so on, and 993, they all felt absolutely cutting edge at that particular moment in time. And I know the 991's put on some weight, but it still feels right at the top of its game relative to everything else that's around it at the price. And I just think, you know, we cannot knock the 991. It's a really good car. It's a fantastic car. Do you know why? Because the Porsche 911 is a fantastic car in all its guises. Here's to the next 50 years.